James noticed it at a friend's birthday dinner last year. He had not planned to spend much that evening. A weeknight out, mid-range restaurant, nothing extravagant, but when the table started ordering, something automatic happened inside him. His friend Ryan ordered the $34 pasta, his friend Trevor went for the $42 steak, and without consciously deciding anything, James pointed to the $38 salmon, a dish he did not particularly want, at a price he had not planned for, chosen almost entirely by an invisible social calculation happening beneath his awareness. On the drive home, James did the math he had been avoiding. After taxes, rent, his car payment, and minimum payments on 2 credit cards, he had roughly $320 of genuinely discretionary money each month. That dinner had cost $68 with his share of the drinks and tip. More than 20% of his monthly breathing room gone in 90 minutes, partly for a fish he found unremarkable. He was not broke. He was not irresponsible. He was doing what most people do, spending in response to the room rather than in response to his own actual choices. And that pattern, repeated across dozens of small decisions every month, was the primary reason his bank balance never seemed to reflect what he earned. What James did not yet know was that the people building genuine, lasting wealth, not the ones performing it, the ones actually accumulating it, had made a quiet, permanent decision to stop doing exactly what he did at that dinner table, and 9 other things like it. This video is about those 10 refusals. Refusal 1. They refuse to spend money to manage other people's impressions. The most foundational refusal on this list is the one that explains every other item. Wealthy people have systematically disconnected their spending from their need for external validation. They buy things because those things serve a genuine function in their lives. The purchase is evaluated on utility, durability, and actual value, never on what it signals to an observer. Research on millionaire spending behavior reveals a consistent pattern that surprises most people. The majority drive ordinary vehicles, Hondas, Toyotas, pickup trucks that get the job done. Most live in homes well below what their income could qualify them for. Most wear clothing that does not announce its price, not because they cannot afford the premium version, but because they ran the math on what the premium version actually costs and concluded it was not worth it. Meanwhile, the people who cannot comfortably afford luxury signals are frequently the ones most visibly displaying them. The pattern runs in the opposite direction from what most people assume. The person driving the entry-level luxury vehicle with a 7-year loan is not communicating financial success. They are communicating that the appearance of financial success costs more to them than the thing itself. James spent years buying at the higher end of whatever range was present in the room he was sitting in. The people building real wealth had stopped caring about the room's opinion long before the room ever noticed. Refusal 2. They refuse to pay interest on things that lose value. Wealthy people are not categorically opposed to debt. Many carry mortgages on properties that appreciate over time. The debt is attached to an asset that gains value, a transaction that can make mathematical sense. What they refuse, with near absolute consistency, is financing things that depreciate the moment they are owned. Cars, electronics, furniture, clothing purchased on installment plans. These are assets that are worth less tomorrow than they are today. Attaching debt to a depreciating asset means paying interest on something that is simultaneously shrinking in value. The financial movement is in 2 wrong directions at once. The average new car financed over a long loan term costs thousands of dollars more in total interest than the vehicle will be worth when the loan is finally paid. The buyer committed to paying $60,000 for a vehicle worth $18,000 at payoff. Wealthy people looked at that transaction, understood the mathematics of it, and declined, not out of deprivation, out of an understanding that the system was designed to make the wrong choice feel manageable. Refusal 3. They refuse to let their lifestyle expand with every income increase. This refusal cuts against every cultural expectation surrounding financial success. In American consumer culture, a raise is supposed to be followed by an upgrade: better apartment, newer car, more expensive dinners, a wardrobe refresh. The economy expects it. The social environment expects it. And the human brain, which adapts to any new baseline within roughly 90 days, practically demands it. Wealthy people refuse. When their income rises, their savings rate rises first, before the lifestyle sees a single dollar of the increase. The gap between what comes in and what goes out stays wide year after year as income grows. That gap is the engine. The wider it is, the faster wealth accumulates. James's colleague, Nathan, earned $40,000 more per year than James. He also spent $40,000 more per year than James. His net worth was lower. The income difference had been entirely absorbed by a lifestyle calibrated to display the success the income represented, leaving nothing behind to compound. Refusal 4. They refuse to make financial decisions from an emotional state. The American consumer economy is built on emotional triggers: urgency created by limited-time pricing, scarcity manufactured by countdown timers, aspiration generated by curated imagery. Every purchase prompt encountered in a given day is engineered to route around rational decision-making and land directly in the part of the brain that responds to feeling. Wealthy people have built structures that interrupt this. They apply waiting periods before any significant purchase, long enough for the emotional charge to dissipate and leave behind only the actual desire, if one exists. They make major financial decisions using numbers rather than feelings. They ask whether they would buy the item at full price without the urgency. If the answer is no, the sale is not saving them money. It is costing them money they would not otherwise have spent. James calculated that he spent close to $300 monthly on purchases he had not planned before encountering them. Annual cost, roughly $3,600. On items he frequently did not remember buying 2 months later. The emotional purchasing system was extracting the equivalent of a month's discretionary income every 30 days, and the system had been designed specifically to do exactly that. Refusal 5. They refuse to let money move without observation. Close to half of Americans enter any given year without a functioning budget. Most people dramatically underestimate what they spend in specific categories, particularly subscriptions and incidental purchases, when asked to estimate without looking at actual statements. Money moves invisibly through dozens of small channels, and the cumulative drain adds up to amounts that would genuinely surprise most people if they examined them honestly. Wealthy people refuse to let money move in the dark. They track where it goes, not obsessively, but systematically. At minimum, once a month, they examine actual spending against actual intentions and ask whether the two are aligned. The tracking does not need to be complicated. A notebook works. A spreadsheet works. The tool is irrelevant. The behavior, deliberately observing where every meaningful dollar went, is what matters. The act of tracking alone reduces unnecessary spending significantly, not because people become miserly after seeing the numbers, but because awareness disrupts automaticity. Spending that happens without conscious attention stops happening when conscious attention is applied to it. Refusal 6. They refuse to carry revolving credit card balances. Research on millionaire financial behavior consistently finds that the vast majority have never carried a credit card balance. Not never carried a large balance, never carried any balance. They treated the card as a transaction tool, paid the full amount every month, collected whatever rewards the card offered, and paid zero interest. The mathematics of carrying a balance at current interest rates are straightforwardly destructive. Interest rates on revolving credit card debt now average close to 24% annually. An 8% investment return working in your favor is being outpaced by 24% working against you simultaneously. Wealthy people recognized that funding both sides of that equation was financially incoherent. They chose a side, the side that compounds in their favor. The credit card is not inherently a wealth-destroying tool. Used as a payment mechanism with full monthly payoff, it is genuinely neutral or slightly beneficial. Used as a lending instrument with a revolving balance, it is one of the most expensive financial products in existence. The distinction is entirely behavioral.
Refusal 7. They refuse to replace functioning things because newer exists. Wealthy people view technology and equipment as tools rather than status markers. Tools get replaced when they stop functioning, not when a newer version is released, not when the marketing cycle announces an upgrade, when the existing tool genuinely cannot perform the job it was purchased to perform. The annual phone upgrade cycle costs thousands of dollars over a decade, compared to replacing a device every 3 to 4 years when it actually needs replacing. But the financial cost is secondary to the psychological pattern it reinforces. Treating the current version as insufficient simply because a newer version exists trains the brain to apply that logic across every consumer category. If this year's phone is already outdated, what else needs upgrading? The upgrade mentality does not stay contained to phones. Wealthy people broke this pattern deliberately. They decided that a functioning device is a good device. The money saved compounds. The money spent on perpetual upgrades compounds for the manufacturer instead. Refusal 8. They refuse to spend their time passively without intention. This refusal is financial in ways that are less immediately obvious, but equally significant. Research on the daily habits of genuinely wealthy individuals finds a consistent pattern of intentional time use. They read, primarily nonfiction related to business, finance, and self-improvement, for meaningful daily durations. They spend far less time in passive entertainment consumption than the average person. They treat time the way they treat money, as a limited resource with an opportunity cost attached to every allocation. The average American spends several hours daily in passive media consumption. A modest portion of that time redirected toward financial education produces a compounding knowledge advantage that influences decades of subsequent decision-making. Understanding compound interest, tax-advantaged accounts, debt mechanics, and investment fundamentals does not require a formal education. It requires roughly 3 hours per week and a few years of consistent attention. James made this shift after that dinner. 1 hour per evening, previously spent scrolling, redirected toward reading about personal finance. Within 8 months, he had opened a Roth IRA, increased his retirement contribution, negotiated his insurance premiums for the first time, and understood for the first time exactly why his net worth had grown so slowly despite reasonable earnings. The information changed his behavior. The behavior is changing his financial trajectory. Refusal 9. They refuse to normalize financial dysfunction in their social environment. The spending behaviors, savings attitudes, and financial expectations of the 5 people closest to you measurably influence your own financial patterns. This is not a theory, it is a documented behavioral phenomenon. When your social environment treats expensive dinners as a routine default, financing new cars as a normal adulthood behavior, and talking about investing as unusual or even slightly strange, your brain adjusts to those norms. The calibration happens gradually, unconsciously, and powerfully. Wealthy people took this seriously. Many of them deliberately cultivated relationships with people who treated building wealth as a normal and unremarkable activity. Not exclusively wealthy people, people who shared a set of values around delayed gratification, intentional spending, and long-term thinking. The social migration was sometimes uncomfortable. It produced a financial environment where the right behaviors felt ordinary rather than exceptional. James's dinner table that evening with Ryan and Trevor was a financial environment. The implicit norm at that table was ordering to the level of the room. He had been calibrating to that norm for years without recognizing it as calibration. Refusal 10. They refused to decide without calculating the full cost. When most people make a financial decision, they evaluate the sticker price. Wealthy people evaluate the total cost, including interest, opportunity cost, ongoing maintenance, depreciation curve, behavioral patterns the purchase normalizes, and the compounded value of the money if it had been invested instead. A car purchase evaluated at the monthly payment is a completely different financial decision from a car purchase evaluated at total interest paid, plus insurance differential, plus opportunity cost of the down payment, plus depreciation over the expected holding period. The monthly payment is designed to make the decision feel manageable. The full cost calculation reveals what the decision actually is. Wealthy people slow down at the moment of financial decision. They refuse to transact on automatic. They ask one question that most buyers never ask. What does this actually cost me in total, including everything I will not be able to do with this money instead? That question, applied consistently across meaningful financial decisions over a career, is the difference between money that compounds for the person who earned it and money that compounds for someone else's quarterly earnings report. James still has dinner with Ryan and Trevor. He ordered differently last month, not because he was performing frugality, but because he had run the actual calculation on what the difference between the salmon and the pasta represented over 30 years of compounding. The number changed the decision, not discipline, understanding. That is the thread connecting all 10 refusals on this list. They are not acts of willpower. They are expressions of a specific kind of understanding, an internalized knowledge of how money actually moves over time, what interest actually costs, what compounding actually produces, and what every dollar spent today is actually worth in the future it will never be invested into. Wealthy people are not more disciplined than everyone else. They see money differently. Every refusal on this list is obvious once you see money the way they do. And once you see it that way, the refusals stop feeling like sacrifice. They feel like the only rational choice available. The understanding is the beginning. Everything else follows from it.